Imagine having 50 best-selling books, but being miserable every day. Would all the success even matter? We spend a lot of time thinking about how to be successful writers. But which is more important, being successful or being happy? The good news is that they're not mutually exclusive. Being happy will lead to more success. And yes, I said that the right way around. We think about success as being the driver for happiness, but truly your feelings of satisfaction and joy in your life will lead to success. So today we're going to talk about 10 habits of happy writers. Because one thing I know for sure is that we don't hit anything we're not aiming for. So if we're not working on building our personal satisfaction and enjoyment of our lives, then we're not going to find it. And if we put all of our energy into doing the things that we believe are leading to success, we may wind up sacrificing our happiness along the way. And the irony of that is that we're actually making it harder on ourselves to become successful. Do you have your best writing sessions when you're feeling down and at war with yourself? Or when you're feeling confident and fulfilled in your work? So that's what we're working on today, and we're going to make it practical. We're going to talk about specific actions that we can take to start working toward happiness and fulfillment in our lives and our writing. Take a deep breath. You've made it to the writing woods. There is no better place to be on a beautiful snowy morning. Y'all know there's no pressure here. We are enjoying nature and building our lifelong writing practices together. If you're looking for more places to do that, head over to writingwoods.com. It is a beautiful community of writers who are all working toward that same goal of building sustainable writing practices. When we talk about happiness, we're talking about more than just momentary pleasure. We want to feel engaged, connected, and aligned with our values to create happiness that lasts beyond a single win. And if you're sitting there thinking, well, if I had 50 best-selling books, I would definitely be happy. I've got a few things for you to consider. Number one, are you really willing to spend years of your life being dissatisfied and unhappy until you reach that goal? Number two, are you sure? Because we all know how those goalposts have a tendency to move once you hit one. And number three, if we're not prioritizing happiness and fulfillment, it's going to be much harder to actually reach that goal. Because guess what unhappy writers don't do? They don't write. At least not very well. So let's start down our list. We got 10 habits of happy writers. First of all, they observe instead of judging. Y'all, when we judge ourselves, we are sabotaging ourselves. Every time you tell yourself, I'm not good enough, or this is terrible, your stress levels spike, your confidence drops, and everything gets harder. That's why it's so important to shift from judgment to observation. Instead of labeling your work or yourself as good or bad, just notice. Pay attention to your writing process, your thoughts, your emotions. Learn to label them and exist with them without casting judgment. And research backs this up. Kristen Neff, a leading self-compassion researcher, found that people who are kinder to themselves recover more quickly from setbacks, which is absolutely critical for writers. We have to be able to bounce back after failure or tough days. In practice, this means allowing yourself to write badly, separating your identity from your output, and practicing observing without judging. Work on journaling, reflecting. Take note of how you're feeling, how your writing sessions went, and become more aware of your thoughts as something separate from you. It also means refraining from judging others, because when you judge someone else, the message you're sending is that you have the right to do that. And if you have the right to judge other people, then they have the right to judge you. And then what they think about you matters. And we all know it's hard to be happy and at peace when you are worried about what others are thinking about you. Number two, they know their why. Many writers have lofty goals for publication and 5-star reviews. That can be motivating at first, but over time it becomes draining. Focusing only on external rewards can make writing feel like a chore. According to self-determination theory, which was developed by Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, people are most satisfied and persistent when they're driven by intrinsic motivation, doing things because they find them enjoyable or meaningful, rather than chasing external rewards or approval. In other words, writers who genuinely love what they're doing are going to be more persistent and more satisfied than those who are just chasing accolades. So take a moment to ask yourself, why am I writing? What drives me beyond sales or recognition or the potential for those things? When we connect with our deeper reason, writing becomes its own reward, and we look forward to it more. We find more happiness and enjoyment in the act of writing our story, rather than it being a means to an end. And that leads us into the third thing happy writers do, which is they measure progress, not outcomes. Writing is a marathon, and we often have a long time between wins. We spend months or years writing a manuscript and then another big stretch of time editing. And even once it's done, the submission process, the publication process, if we make it there at all, it is not short. So if we're only focusing on those big milestones, we've got a lot of waiting before we feel any kind of success or see any indication that what we're doing is worthwhile. That is exhausting. And if you're looking for happiness and satisfaction in your life, it's not going to be there. It gets real easy to feel stuck or frustrated. Every day you sit down to write, if all you have in your mind is that big goal, then what you're doing in that one day is barely moving the needle. Researcher Teresa Amabile analyzed thousands of diary entries from employees and found that their inner work life was the single biggest predictor of their productivity. And what do you think was the biggest driver of a positive inner work life? Small wins that create meaningful progress. Each little advance, finishing a paragraph, having a writing session on a tough day, figuring out a plot issue you were struggling with, boosts motivation and satisfaction much more than only focusing on the end result. And this not only makes us happier, it also makes us more productive. Celebrate small wins and focus on the effort you're putting in rather than what you're producing. If your goal is to write every day, are you sitting down to write every day? If your goal is to think about your story every day, are you doing that? That matters much more than word count. Feeling progress keeps us more engaged, more confident. It helps us enjoy the process. And if we enjoy the process, then we keep doing it. Number 4, happy writers curate their environment. Many of us rely on willpower and discipline to get things done, but the truth is willpower is limited. It's finite. And it's easy to get distracted or burnt out. Just getting started with writing is often the biggest hurdle, and there are ways to minimize the effort that it takes to get started. Instead of waiting for motivation, design your space and your routines so that writing becomes the natural choice, so you don't have to think about it. That could be as simple as having a clean desk or keeping your favorite notebook on hand. It can also mean designing habits and rituals. Maybe you write at the same time of day or after doing a certain activity, after your coffee or workout. That reduces the friction that we feel when we're getting started, makes it easier, simpler, and removes a lot of stress from the process that's going to make us feel beat down. Happy writers don't just rely on grit and discipline. They set up conditions that support their creative work, so they can focus on writing instead of fighting their environment and creating additional stress around their writing practice. And y'all, I know that your environment may not be as nice as mine, but just simple changes can really impact the level of stress that you're feeling around your writing. Number 5, happy writers take care of their body. It might sound obvious, but your physical health has a big impact on your creativity and your mood. Take sleep, for example. Sleep deprivation doesn't just make us tired. It also makes us more emotionally reactive and less resilient. Good sleep literally stabilizes your mood. Another piece is your circadian rhythm, your internal clock. When your sleep schedule is out of sync, you are much more likely to experience burnout, anxiety, and poor cognitive performance. I can tell y'all that even if I get the same amount of sleep, if I go to bed at 10:30 instead of 9, I feel much worse the next day. One way to combat this and help keep your circadian rhythm in line is early sun exposure. Especially before 10 a.m. Research shows that that can help align your circadian rhythms and improve overall sleep health. Of course, there are many more pieces to taking care of your body, eating right, getting exercise. We know that these things are important to our overall mood and happiness, but how often do we let them slip in pursuit of either short-term pleasure or what we see as things necessary to our success? How often do we stay up late getting something done instead of sleeping? If we do that on any kind of consistent basis, then we are putting these things above our overall happiness. So what do happy writers do? They make it a priority to take care of their body. Number 6, they have an identity outside of writing. If your entire identity and sense of self-worth hinges on one thing, your mood is going to be up and down. That's too much pressure. Your happiness and your mood will follow the trajectory of that one thing. And we know that writing is not a consistent upward trajectory. Whether we're talking about the process or the external goals, we just can't base the entirety of our identity and our happiness on that one thing. And sure, we're defined by what we do, but we're also defined by the people we love, the places we love, our hobbies, our pets. We are more than just one thing. This one can be really difficult for me personally because I tend to hyperfixate on projects, and then I feel very strongly in the positive or negative dependent on how it's going. But if I back up and remember that I'm more than just that one thing and see my life in the broader strokes, I feel happier, more balanced, more at peace. People with multiple meaningful identities are more resilient when one takes a hit. If writing is who I am and all that I am, then a bad writing day becomes something is wrong with me. But if writing is part of me, is one thing that I do, then a bad writing day is a bad writing day. An activity that can help with this is to sit down and literally make a list of everything that you identify as. If somebody walked up to you and asked, "What are you?" how many things could you say? I'm a writer, I'm a book editor, I'm a backpacker, a climber, a daughter, a partner, a human to the craziest, sweetest husky. And if any one thing is not going well, there is still so much to you. All right, number 7, happy writers manage their wants. Now this one can sound a little funny. Harvard professor Arthur Brooks popularized this equation, and it makes perfect sense. Happiness is what you have divided by what you want. Haves divided by wants. Whether we're talking about money, relationships, fame, legacy, anything that we could desire for ourselves, we often want more and more and more. No matter what we have or what we achieve, there is always something in the distance to strive for. And these endlessly growing goals, wants, impact our overall sense of satisfaction with our life. The more our happiness depends on getting the next thing, the more fragile it becomes. I mean, keeping up with the Joneses, right? Whether we're talking about having a bigger box to live in or more success with writing, if you've never finished a manuscript, that's all you want to do is just finish that book and then you'll be happy. But then you finish it and you want an agent and then you'll be happy. But then when you have an agent, you want a book deal. And when you get a book deal, you want another one or a best-selling book or more sales. And we're constantly on this treadmill chasing and chasing and chasing, and we're never happy. And this doesn't mean that we can't have goals and ambitions. It just means that we need to decouple our happiness and our sense of self from reaching these goals. The exercise that Arthur Brooks came up with for doing this is called a reverse bucket list. He talks about doing it on his birthday. You start like you're making a bucket list, write down all your goals, your ambitions, the things that you want to do or achieve. And then one by one, go down the list and cross them out. Now you're not destroying these goals. You're not going to stop working toward them. But what you're doing is detaching yourself from the desires. Whether or not you achieve them does not define you. And if you never do any of those things, you can still be happy and feel fulfilled in your life. Try that and see how quickly you feel more satisfied with where you are in life and how quickly the pressure on you lightens. Number 8, happy writers protect creative energy. Now this is about more than protecting just your writing time. Cognitive and creative energy are limited resources. We don't have unlimited supplies of clarity and attention and focus. And once it's spent, it doesn't just come back when we sit down to write. So we have to pay attention to how we are managing those resources. Every choice that we make, every interruption, every demand on our time drains cognitive resources. Decision fatigue is a thing, y'all. And by the time we get to actually write, there may not be much left. You may be noticing a pattern at this point that this is going to be real rough on our productivity. It's going to make it hard to get things done. And it's also going to make us very unhappy and stressed. But if we are not thinking about our happiness as an end goal, if we're only thinking about productivity, then the instinct is going to be to push through. But that's not going to get us where we need to go. That's not going to restore or protect the creative energy. If we're thinking about our happiness, on the other hand, then we might do something different. We might set boundaries on our time and energy to protect those creative resources and to protect our happiness, to keep ourselves from getting burnt out. We might also take steps to restore those cognitive resources. Attention restoration theory was developed by Stephen and Rachel Kaplan in the 1970s. And it shows that spending time outside in nature can actually restore focus and attention. It has to do with something they call soft fascination, which is a state where our mind is engaged in the environment around us, but not wholly focused on a singular thing. I'll be talking more about that theory in another episode because there's a lot to get into there. But for our purposes today, remember that to protect our happiness, we have to protect our mental energy. Be cognizant of what we're spending our mental resources on and set boundaries in our lives. And remember to go outside. If you're feeling drained, mentally fatigued, go for a walk in the woods, in a park. Just sit out in your yard and watch the birds and see if you don't feel happier and more focused. Number 9, happy writers take ownership of their choices. They don't just react as life happens. They actively shape their creative lives. And this is important because autonomy, which is the sense that you're choosing your actions, is one of the strongest predictors of happiness. Research in psychology shows this again and again. Self-determination theory actually identifies autonomy as a basic human need. When people feel like they have control and choice over their actions, their happiness and satisfaction increase. I mean, no one wants to feel like they're being dragged along, right? We even talk about agency when it comes to our characters. We don't even want to read about somebody being dragged along by the plot. Why on earth would we want to live it? But this autonomy that we're talking about is something that we can choose. In the 50s, Julian Rotter created a concept called locus of control. Those with an internal locus of control believe that their choices influence the outcomes, whereas folks with an external locus control tend to blame outside forces, like other people or luck. Someone with an internal locus of control is going to say that they make things happen, whereas for someone with an external locus of control, things are happening to them. And that is simply a way of viewing yourself, the world, and your place in it. Developing an internal locus of control makes us more proactive because our choices matter. We're more resilient because things aren't just happening to us all the time. There is something that we can do about it. Our choices, our actions, they drive our story forward. And that adds up to making us happier writers, happier people. And this doesn't mean pretending that you control everything, because obviously we don't. It means noticing where you do have agency and believing that your actions will impact your life. And this goes hand in hand with a lot of the habits we've talked about. If you believe that you control your happiness, that you can do things that will make you happier overall, then you're more likely to actually take these steps that will contribute to your personal satisfaction and enjoyment of your life. But if you think that everything happens to you and there's nothing you can do about it, then it just is what it is. And this can be a positive cycle, because the more that you believe you have agency, the more you're going to do things to try to make your life better. And as you see the impacts of those decisions, it'll reinforce to you that you do have agency and control, that your actions do change your life. And when you recognize your agency, that in itself will make you feel happier, more in control, more autonomous, and everything else follows from there. The last habit of happy writers has to do with what we are looking for in our lives. Happy writers seek meaning, not just achievement. It is good to write because it motivates you and you love the process. That's intrinsic motivation that we talked about earlier. But another piece is to write in a way and to write something that matters to yourself and maybe even to others. Martin Seligman created the PERMA model, which outlines 5 core elements of well-being: positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. So meaning is one of the 5 core elements of well-being, and in this context it refers to serving something greater than ourselves. Does your writing serve your purpose in life? Now that is a big question, and serving something greater than ourselves can refer to a whole slew of things. And notice that in Seligman's framework, achievement is important, but achievement alone will not create lasting happiness. We know that meaning is important. Wins and recognition are nice, but they only give short-term satisfaction. Writing that resonates with our values and feels purposeful creates a deeper, more lasting kind of fulfillment. When we're writing something that has meaning to us, it feels important and purposeful even if no one else sees it. Even slow progress feels more worthwhile. When we focus on meaning in our writing, we are creating a life that we're proud of. And you just can't find lasting happiness if you are not proud of the work that you're doing, the life that you're living, what you are putting your energy in every day. So what should we take away from all this? For me, I am coming to realize that happiness is as much a lifelong pursuit as any kind of success. It is something that we work for, and for most of my life, I've not been working very diligently toward that goal. I figured happiness was a result of success, but the truth is, it's an ingredient in success. I've been much more concerned with counting my words than counting my smiles. But which is more important? And the good news for anyone who's struggling to answer that question is they're not mutually exclusive. A happier writer is a better writer. So focusing on our happiness is in the best interest of ourselves and our work. I've said it before that your writing is part of you, and there is no story without a whole and happy you. I don't know about y'all, but I'm going to focus on paying more attention to the quality of my life, my happiness, my everyday enjoyment and satisfaction with who I am and what I'm doing, and believe that everything else will fall into place.